Welcome, 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 everyone, to the Women's Empower Network. I am so excited to have Chelsey with us today, and welcome.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here with you, Jenny. This is going to be a fun conversation.
Yeah, it is. I can't wait to hear your story. So let's just jump in. If you would tell us a little bit about your story and journey that led you to what you're passionate about today.
Yeah, I have always been wired as a healer. I knew that from a very early age. I didn't know what was going on, but I was always the kid that ended up being the therapist on the playground, or when I was actually bullied because I was a little bit on the nerdier side. I was that kid that believed in fairies and talked to trees, and which might surprise you by looking at me. I know I look so normal. Uh, But
Well,
yeah, so I kind of had to learn from an early age how to read people and how to interpret their energy, so I could tell when the school bully was crackling, when I was in the in crowd, when I was not in the in crowd. So I developed those skills at a very early age. And as I grew, I actually started out very, very codependent. I was really good at reading people, figuring out what they needed from me, and then shoving myself into a little box and fitting that for a while. And then I'd have to break out of it. And I just repeated that cycle up until my 20s, and yeah, up until my late 20s. I found myself in a relationship with a narcissistic husband, and um, it's not something that I would wish on anybody, but it is what woke me up. It is definitely, it was kind of like my pressure cooker. I spent 8 years with the guy, and in those 8 years, I was having my mind twisted and bent and manipulated. Thankfully, it never got physical, but um, put it this way, by the time I left, I was so mentally twisted up that when I asked for a divorce, I thought it was because I was becoming the monster. I thought it was because I was becoming somebody that I didn't like. And it took me a little while to get away from that situation and to be out of that energy, to realize all of the mental manipulation, all of the little subtle things that he had done. And I'm an intuitive hypnotherapist, and I specialize in anxiety. I After that divorce, I felt the most free that I ever had, but I still had all these thoughts in my head, thoughts that I knew weren't true. I knew they weren't helpful. I knew some of them weren't even mine.
right.
Just those kind of typical breakup thoughts of, okay, well, who's gonna love me? I have blue hair. Who's gonna love me? At least my ex-husband put up with me and my craft stuff being all over the house. Well, what do I really have to offer? Well, I'm just was um this anxious little ball of weirdness who's. I knew those thoughts weren't true, and I knew they weren't mine. I knew they had been put there. I didn't know how to get them out, though. I went to every therapist in the book. I went to the psychologist, the psychiatrist, the energy healers, my hairstylist, every single person that I could try to get this figured out with. And all I was doing was just talking about it. Or even the energy work was just kind of clearing off a layer, but it wasn't actually sticking. So I looked around, did some Googling, and found the guy who later became my teacher. And I said, dude, this feels like I've been hypnotized. Can you dehypnotize me? And he said, yeah, absolutely. And Ginny, I had one session and one follow-up with him. Never thought the same way again.
Wow.
A few months later, I met the man that I am still currently dating. We're 5 years strong. Actually, our anniversary is this weekend. It's
Oh,
the healthiest, most stable, most loving relationship I've ever experienced. And I had had a pattern of dating the wounded puppies, by the way. So that was a huge breakthrough for me. And then I started my business because I felt like, oh my God, I have to learn this. Um, and I've always kind of been fascinated with the unconscious mind. I've always been I like to call myself heart-centered, but brain-led. If my mind isn't on board, it's not going to take effect. So I've always been fascinated with unlocking things at the unconscious level because that's where so many of us are driven from. And when you can access that, it's like killing the original vampire. Back in my day, vampires didn't sparkle. When you killed the original one, all the other little vampires disappear. And I've just always been so fascinated with that process. And I've just been, as I did that, um, I built my relationship with Source and with the creator of all that is, whatever it's called, that unconditional love that created us and put us on a planet full of trees instead of sulfur and pricker bushes. Um, and so I started blending in my own connection with Source and my own intuitive connection. And it's been creating really, really powerful healing that I'm just, I don't even know if this is going to sound weird, so bear with me. I don't even know if it's a passion per se. I don't wake up every morning going, oh my God, I can't wait to hear some trauma. But, but I can't not do it.
Yep.
I get, I get edgy, I get depressed, I get cranky if I am not doing this work. So I don't know if you would call it a passion in a traditional sense. I get excited when I see people have that breakthrough, absolutely. But it's just, I just keep getting pulled along by this string and I can't not. It's wonderful.
Like a calling.
Bingo.
Yeah. Well, like we were just talking before we came,
Yeah.
I didn't think I was going to be doing this. So that's
Exactly.
kind of,
It does. It just sort of pulls you and you just you're not in a position to say no at that point.
but
And
it's
I think
also,
that
doesn't it? I think of it too, I equate it to like a slipstream. It's like when you stop resisting or you remove, however, the language you want to use of removing what's in the way from you moving forward, whatever direction that is. It's almost, for me, it's almost like it's just, now it's just, I'm openly being led,
yeah,
I allow, it sounds like that's how it is for you.
it is. I can honestly say I have not had a bad day at work. I've had days that didn't go the way I wanted them to. I have had days where I've been like, "Oh, did they get anything out of that? That didn't go the way I thought it would." But I can't really look back. I look back at my days of waiting tables, and I would come home just in misery, in physical pain, in agony. I would go in with this sense of dread. I have never once felt that. And I think to me, that is success, is to live such a life as it works for you.
And it's in alignment with who you are.
Yeah. Oh, I realize, and I don't know if you feel this way too, but I don't want to live any other person's life now. I've I remember again, I remember my past. I remember before this whole awakening thing and before this whole journey and the pressure cooker and then coming out of it. And I look back and I remembered wanting to live other people's lives. I remember wanting to be somebody else. And now that again I'm in the slipstream, um, I can't not live as Chelsey Albert. I can try. There are times where I get out of alignment and I'll start forcing myself into a box that I don't belong in, but I can't imagine living a life that doesn't work for me now.
That, just talking to you makes my heart sing because, I mean, you don't look over 29, just FYI. So,
Thank
you
you.
know,
I'll be 35 on Saturday, so
wow, well, happy
thank you.
birthday. But it
Thank
makes
you.
my heart sing when women like you who have these awakening much younger uh than, let's say, I did, or somebody else. So many people stay way too long and don't have an awakening, I guess you could call it.
It was it was a challenge. It was because, like I said, it never got physical. That was always one of my boundaries. My mom always taught me from a very young age, your your marriage can survive anything except the three A's: adultery, abuse, or addiction. Now, those were her boundaries that she instilled upon me, and I took those on full on, and I think they're great boundaries to have, and it's a great little acronym. Um, so I always made it very clear to him that if he did any of those, not only was I gone, but if he hit me, I'd hit back. That's not the healer thing to say, but I took boxing, I took jujitsu, I took martial arts. He never got physical with me. But so by that standard, I think a lot of women in those situations where the marriage is in fact killing their soul. Whether it is somebody who is highly toxic, like a narcissist, or whether it is just you two just bring out the worst in each other. That happens.
That was my
Uh,
first husband. And,
yeah,
and I didn't find out till maybe 3 years ago, and we've been divorced for 30, that what he used, because there was no word for it, but what he used to do to me was gaslighting. And
yeah,
I didn't know the words for it, but I just knew that this does not emotionally support me, you know?
yeah. And it's the most insidious thing that you'll go through in any kind of, again, you don't have to be a narcissist to use gaslighting. It's just a very, very toxic tactic. It's But I was at the point, I had only been married for, okay, so here's an interesting. I really should have known. The night before my wedding, my friends were dragging me through Walmart to get some last minute items, and I'm sitting there sobbing, saying, I don't want to get married. And my friends, I love them, and they have always loved me, but they kind of said like, okay, Chelsea, it's just jitters. Come on, you've got that. And everything in my soul was like, I don't want to get married. Went through the marriage, and about 6 months in, I would lay awake in bed crying, going, God, what do I do? God, what do I do? God, what do I do? I just gotten married to this guy. People got us wedding gifts. People came from out of town. I can't just like cut and run after 6 months. And I heard very clearly the words, get out. Now, of course, me being Chelsey at the time, I was like, okay, no, that's just me being paranoid. Seriously, God, what do I do? And I'm not a very religious person. So I did that for 6 months, Jenny. No, I did that for 18 months. I laid in bed awake for about, actually, I think it was about a year because then we did a separation and that kind of drew out for 6 months. But when I got out of the marriage, I never heard the words get back in. And
Right?
and that was kind of one of my first trust exercises of, ooh, okay, there was something there. Back to the original point, I didn't, I think some women will especially struggle in their awakening. And to your point about waiting it out, sometimes it's just okay enough to not leave. Sometimes your soul is being killed, but because it doesn't have the markers of traditional toxicity, alcoholism, abuse, cheating, even again, some people will stay through that. But there's this little level of, I can make it work. Okay, this is who I married, this is what I did, this was my choice, I'll sit in it. And I'm so glad that I didn't bow down to that. I'm so glad that yes, could I have stayed another few years? Sure. Would I have been depressed, anxious, miserable? Yes. And I don't regret the time frame for one single second. I know that there have been marriages that have lasted longer. It's not a badge of honors to stay in suffering. It's just not. I went
It
off on a
is.
huge tangent there. Sorry.
No, that's perfect. No, you know what? I get it. I get it 1,000%. And there's this expression, I don't remember it exactly, something about the devil that you know is less scary than the one that you don't know.
Yeah. And
And
that's where toxicity will put you. It's a really, really sneaky thing. But the cool part about, okay, again, I do not wish this on anybody. If I had my ideal Chelsey world, and part of the reason that I do this work that I do is so that people don't have to go through that experience ever again. Because oftentimes toxicity breeds cycles of toxicity, pain
right.
breeds cycles of pain, and we keep kind of finding the same painful partners. But I will say the magical thing about it, that was my proving ground. That was the thing that gave me the strength to say, if I can walk away from this, if I can go through the legal system and undo what's been done, and let me tell you, it's a lot harder to undo than it is to do.
Right.
If I can do that, uh, bring it on, world. What else you got for me?
I love that. So you consider yourself an intuitive hypnotherapist?
Yeah, I use hypnosis as one of my tools. I also do theta healing, energy work, and my own intuition kind of comes through. I was actually talking about this at a networking event this morning. One of my superpowers that is different from most hypnotists and most hypnosis practitioners is I'm a really good professional gremlin spotter. I've always had a gift for seeing beneath the surface in conversation and really being able to pull out what little beliefs, what little blocks, what little gremlins are really hiding under all of the layers of guards and conversation and protection. And I think this is this, I think this is this. I've always been able to see through it.
That's
And so
beautiful. Yeah.
it's fun once you know how to use it. I think it when I was a kid and when I was younger and I just was kind of like diving into people, people actually sometimes don't want to be seen. They
Right.
think they've got their mask up, they think it's great, they think it's nice and solid, and it can be really unnerving for people when you just come up to them and go, "Y'all right?" And so I had to learn to tuck that in a little bit and wait for permission to really do that.
Right. Yeah. No, I get that. Well, that is beautiful. I love that. So if somebody really resonates with your message today, how would they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can always visit my website when this goes live. I'll post that's www.chelsey, ChelseY, Albert, ALBERT, healing.com. That's how you can book an appointment. That is also how you can join my Catalyst membership, where you get access to biweekly group coaching, monthly healing, as well as a library of healing audios that you can listen to anytime you need. So there's a couple different ways to work with me, and I love it all. Or you can follow me on YouTube and subscribe. I'm always putting out little videos with just some good little nuggets. Um, yeah, and I would say if you struggle with anxiety or if you struggle with that toxic relationship pattern that just keeps you, it's kind of like an emotional rubber band. That's the work that I do is if we were totally logical creatures, we'd be able to say, okay, you know what? I'm done with that. Never going back to that again. I'm safe. I'm good. I'm not that little girl that needs, or I'm not that little boy that needs this. Um, but we have this little emotional rubber band that just keeps snapping us back to the past. So if you have a rubber band that's been snapping you back and keeping you from moving forward, you are my people.
I have a friend, she's in her 80s and she keeps doing it. And I call it looping. She just keeps looping,
Yeah.
and 5, 10 years of the same conversation. And I'm just like, until you're willing to be honest, you know,
Yeah. And it's really painful if you're watching someone you love go through it.
it is. And I get, and it was what I just said earlier about the devil, Um, but I think what's so great about people like you, Chelsey, doing the work you do, that we don't have to suffer alone any longer. We don't have to do this alone. And that there's so many people out there that you find a tribe that speaks to you, that you resonate with, that energetically supports you, because it's not an overnight thing, right?
Yeah, it's not. And I think what you said is just absolutely dead bang on. When you get around a different crowd of people who say that you don't have to put up with this standard of life, you can come up here and join us. And then then you get access to this level of people, and then you get that, and you just keep expanding. And I think that's Women's Empower Network and the just like you said, the tribe that you have created is so expansive and it's just so powerful to be able to just pop on and connect and say, okay, hey, I need a little support, or hey, how can I do this? And you've got people who are both willing to say, yes, you are still rocking it, even if you're in a dip, and to have people lift you up too. It's the coolest community.
Thank you. Well, and the other thing too, when we're all on our personal journey, if we hit a stumbling block, it's kind of like, I don't know why we make ourselves wrong. Like, we momentarily get amnesia, like we haven't made any progress, which is not true.
So I've got a theory about that. And I've got a big perfectionist streak a mile wide, and my perfectionist has a megaphone in my head.
That's
But
fine.
sometimes when we feel the most out of control, the that little perfectionist in our brain, that little ego, will start saying, okay, well, you know what? I might not be able to control anything else, but look how great I fucked that up. Oh, sorry. Look how, but
It's okay.
that in an attempt to control our mind, that little voice in our minds will go, okay, well, you know what? I don't have a handle on any of this, but look at how well I can mess my world up. Look at me go. And it's still that little voice just trying to get some like validation of, I can't do anything else, but boy, I can mess things up and I'm a pro at that. So if we can remember that that little voice is just trying to help us gain that confidence somewhere, we can redirect it to, okay, nope, I'm not just good at messing things up. What else am I good at?
Well, in another way, another twist that comes to mind about that is like if you were able to manifest that and you can reverse engineer it and see how you came to that point in time, then you can create something different
Exactly.
because
It's,
you're a master creator, whether it's to your benefit or not.
you are so, so right. It's a really powerful thing. And it's one of the most, I tell people all the time, you're paying me to be a pest. Once we see that in some way or another, we have I'm not saying this to blame, we are not always to blame for the things that happen in our external world, but our soul on some level or our unconscious mind on some level has agreed to that part of the journey. And even with the darkest tragedies, the soul has come here to expand and to play with it. And when you look at that piece of it, there's so, so much power. It's kind of a little jarring at first to acknowledge, hey, on some level, whether it's conscious or unconscious, I chose this or I agreed to it at the very least. But then we go, okay, so then why did my soul agree to this journey? What did it want to happen there so that I could expand into an even greater life? What did I need to wake me up? Was it my fault that, I that my ex-husband treated me the way he did? No. But on a soul level, I agreed to it because I needed that proving ground. I needed that in order to expand me and honestly to draw me towards my people. I work with a lot of women who have been through the narcissistic cycle and who are still stuck in it in some ways. And I wouldn't have that ability had I not gone through what I went through.
No, and there's something you said that I think, that I can relate to too is for whatever reason is learning to trust that inner guidance, that inner voice, whatever it is you call it. Um, and then once you didn't, like you said, then it became a proving ground. But now I bet you're unshakable when it comes to hearing that voice. You're going to like, oh, I don't need to know why. Just you said, don't do this. Got it. Okay. Right.
It's interesting. I think there's a constant evolution and maybe I will just get more solid as the years go on. There's still times where I battle with it. I've noticed that when it comes to those kinds of when it comes to knowing who my people are and who they're not, bam, absolutely. That voice gets full front and center. If it says something, I listen. Certain other things I'm still tinkering with in my life. I'm still gathering experiences, and I think it's okay for us all to have grace for ourselves when we don't exactly listen to that voice, as long as we acknowledge that voice is talking to us. That's part of the practice is to say, "Ooh, okay, I observe that you're telling me to turn left here. I'm going to turn right, but I am going to acknowledge that I heard you so that next time, if I should have turned left, I will know for a fact that some of us have to learn by experience, and that's okay."
Hey, that's how I did it. Absolutely, 1,000%. And I used to have to like I felt like an engineer or a scientist. I had to diagnose, like, okay, so why are you telling me this? I
Yeah.
want to understand, So I think it's like a natural progression. I really do. Till you'll get to the place where it's like, oh, you said don't. I say, okay. Because, it's just, and I think it's just, and I think the other thing that you said that's really important that I want to bring it back to the surface is don't judge yourself. It's not about right and wrong or good or bad, like you say so eloquently. I can't say that word today. But it's your next level of evolution. You needed it to have a different awareness. So it wasn't wrong. It's just it was your path.
I've I've really come to understand that there is no, when it comes to this world, now there are spiritual laws and things that, are best not messed with. But when it comes to, us in our human suits, we, there's no such thing as objectively good or objectively bad. And if I could wave a wand and remove one thing from the world, it would be judgment. There's, I've learned to shift my vision because, okay, here's the thing. I mean, stealing, objectively bad, we would mostly agree. And yet we have an entire mythology of a guy called Robin Hood who stole. We have grace for the person who steals because they have no other option and they're hungry. And so I've learned that there's no such thing as good or bad. There's just helpful or unhelpful. Is it helpful to live in a society where we all steal each other's stuff? No, because then we won't have any real rhyme or reason, and we'll just live in fear all the time. So is it helpful to steal? No. Is it helpful? Is it good or bad to go through certain experiences, or is it good or bad to be at a certain stage of your journey where maybe you aren't as connected to the world as, maybe some other people are? It's not good or bad, it's just not helpful.
Right. And it's what I'm hearing too, it may not be helpful for your particular journey.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing that's also given me a lot of compassion. And I don't know if you experienced this as a coach as well, but early on, and I think early in my life, even before I started, my profession, I wanted to help people so bad. I would, oh man, there were people, and I would just be, it was like I was on the other side of the fence, and I'm shouting, the grass really is greener. Just let me pick you up, put you in a backpack, and just carry you over the fence. And I got burned a lot by that mentality. And I had to realize that, yeah, what was helpful for me, what I really felt good in, and what expanded my life, some people did not desire that, and they were actually more at peace on the other side of the fence. It was more helpful for them to stay in that cycle, even. Um, some people even do, oddly enough, feel more at peace in the loop than they would in the wild world of empowerment. Empowerment's a scary thing, but it's for me, it's worth it because it puts me back in control of my own life. I'm at no one's mercy.
It's beautiful. Well, before we go today, and I just want to mention to everybody, we'll be sure to put the links above this interview and down in the comments. Um, so, and you've given us plenty of gems. You've given us many gems. But what parting words of wisdom would you like to share before we go today?
Ooh, okay, like the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
Whatever comes to you.
Hold on. Okay, whatever comes to me, huh? There are no rules. There are no rules that bind you into one particular way of life, one particular path. We are on such an interesting trajectory right now. I mean, I'm sure you felt it. Life, energy, the way of being is changing so rapidly these days. Yes, there's good and bad. Yes, there's helpful or unhelpful. But this is a time to start questioning whether or not you are truly stuck. And my money's on no. That's what came through. So I hope it helps somebody. That there's always one person that resonates with whenever somebody says, "Hey, say something random," and you just gotta trust it.
I know, right? It's true. You never really are stuck. It just you may feel like it, but yeah. Well, Chelsey, thank you so much for being with us today. And if you resonate with Chelsey, please, please, please reach out to her, connect with her. We'll be sure to make that easy to do. And thank you again for being here.
Ginny, this was such a joy and such an honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.